Habaragani, what's the news? Welcome to Shadow Families, and I'm your host, the Glamorous Militant, aka Arewa. And the reason we call this show Shadow Families is because many of us have been impacted by police violence and brutality. Like my family, I lost my great nephew, Pierre Loury, to police violence on April 11th in 2016. But most of us may not make local news, and we may not make national news. But in urban communities, especially on the south and west sides of the city of Chicago, we are having loved ones experience police brutality, misconduct, unlawful use of force. And so that's why we're having these conversations around reform, accountability, and oversight. On today's episode of Shadow Families, we have a very special guest. His name is Baba Frank Chapman, and here in the city of Chicago, we consider him the father of the movement for community control over the police. And he was also one of the leading organizers around an ordinance that was passed here in Chicago called Empowering Communities for Public Safety, where we actually will have oversight over our police department. So thank you for joining us for today's show. Okay. Welcome to the first episode of Shadow Families with myself, the Glamorous Militant, as your host. And we will be having conversations around police accountability, oversight, and reform, mainly here in Chicago, because we've been leading several fights about oversight over our police department for some years now. And today, my first guest is who we like to call here in Chicago the father of this movement, Baba Frank Chapman. I met Bob, and I call him Baba Frank out of cultural respect. After I lost my nephew in 2016, he was shot and killed in the North Lawndale community by the Chicago Police Department. And there were folks, what we call boots on the ground. I met folks from the Alliance. I met folks from CPAC, which is Civilian Police Accountability Council, yes, right? Yes. And so, they just, the movement organizers brought me under their wings, and I had an opportunity to meet Baba Frank Chapman, and I have been very grateful and humbled, just being around him and learning so much from him. And so what we have going on in Chicago right now is something that we call Empowering Communities for Public Safety. And for the first time in the country, we will have community oversight over our policing departments. And he has been a major voice in this movement. And I just want to have a very kind of natural and organic conversation with him about it, because a lot of folks in Chicago still don't know what the work involves, how they will have opportunity to take part in the work, and how monumental this is, not just for the city of Chicago, but for the nation, for other cities to be able to hopefully emulate some of the strides that we are making here in Chicago around police reform and oversight. And so now I'm just going to turn it over to Baba Frank. He's going to give his own introduction of all the work that he's been doing. I know he's a field organizer here at the Alliance and educational director here at the Alliance. And so he could tell us a little bit more about who he is and how he came into this work.
Okay, that's a long story. So I'm glad we got some time. Well, let me just begin with a historical note. As many of you know, in 1969, one of our great young revolutionary leaders in this city, Fred Hampton, along with Mark Clark, was murdered by the police. That was the first assassination of a black leader that we know the police was involved in. They may have been involved in the assassination of Dr. King, but we don't have any direct proof of that. They may have been involved in the assassination of Malcolm X. We don't have any direct proof of that. But we know they were involved in the murder of Fred Hampton. We have direct proof of that. They were on the scene of the crime, and they were the perpetrators. And why were they there? Because Fred Hampton was the leader of a movement in this city unlike anything that existed anywhere else in the country. Although this movement for community control of the police started in Berkeley, California, early on in 1969 with Bobby Seale and Huey P. Newton, the most massive development of this movement was here in Chicago under the leadership of Fred Hampton. And what he did, he brought together, we call it the first Rainbow Coalition in Chicago. He brought together the Latinx community, the black community, and some young white people calling themselves the Patriots. That had never happened before. And they tried to create a situation where it would never happen again because they murdered him. And, you know, Fred used to always say you can kill a revolutionary, but you can't kill a revolution. So in 1973, when my organization, the National Alliance Against Race and Political Repression, was founded, we took up that mantle. You know, we picked up that torch because we knew that Fred Hampton was a martyr for our movement. And so we took up that torch. And then in 1977, we drafted the first model legislation to create we called it at that time, Police Control Board. So the idea of the black community controlling the police was always there. And it's been there for some time. A lot of people don't know it goes all the way back to Black Reconstruction, you know, which was a 10 short year period after the Civil War from 1867 to 1877. But we don't have time to review all of that. What I want to just make clear is that this is a historic movement that's been going on for a long time. I've been engaged in it myself for almost 50 years. So it didn't just spring up in Chicago out of nowhere. You know, we have strong historical roots of it right here. And after the murder of Rekia Boyd in 2012, we called a meeting together in which we formed CPAC.
Okay.
It was formed in the wake of her murder, Civilian Police Accountability Council. She was a 21-year-old black woman who was shot in the head by a cop by the name of Dante Servin. And it was a drive-by.
It was a drive-by.
He claimed that they were making too much noise in a public park. And he drove by and shot in that park and hit her in the head with that bullet. And she died instantly. So this movement is in her honor, you know, and also in honor of your nephew.
All right, thank you.
And everybody that's been murdered by the police unjustifiably, and it's also those who have been tortured and wrongfully imprisoned by the police, like the John Burge cases. Also those who have had their doors kicked in, you know, like Anjanette Young case. Everybody that has suffered any kind of police abuse in this city, we are doing this for, okay? And so this is a movement. This is a movement to correct an injustice. And it's the only movement of its type going on right now in the United States because everybody is complaining about police crimes.
Right.
When Tyree Nichols got killed, there was outrage from Memphis to the White House. Well, I don't know about it being outrage in the White House, but it was spoken on.
Yes.
And so it was a moment of truth where everybody was saying, "Oh, this is terrible. This should not have happened." And so, well, we've been in many of these moments of truth, haven't we?
We have.
You know, we were in it with George
Yes.
Floyd.
Yes.
So the question is, what are they going to do about it? And see, what makes this different from the George Floyd case and all the other cases we've been involved in up to this moment is that now we have on the table a measure that we can take. Now we have on the table something that moves us in the direction of the solution. I'm not saying it's the solution. I'm saying it moves us in the direction of the solution.
True. So, you know, we do have, you know, so many national cases where, you know, we're constantly seeing, you know, what we saw in the case of George Floyd, in the case of, you know, Tyree Nichols, but, you know, here in Breonna Taylor, but, you know, here in Chicago, we know we have our own families. You know, we have Laquan McDonald, and we have Rekia Boyd, and we have so many, the list goes on and on, including my nephew. So, you know, what does this really mean for Chicago to be, we're really at the forefront of, you know, a lot of what's happening. I don't see the historical impact from the response from the city. You know, it's like we trying to lift and do all this work, and we still have so many people. Here we are, we've made history here at home in our city, but it's just not being lifted up as such. So why do you think that is?
Well, you're right, Arewa. The city has not been a big advocate of this, although the mayor signed off on it. And let me go back to July 2021. In July 2021, when this ordinance was passed, every major newspaper in the country said it was a change maker. Every newspaper in the country said nothing like this has been done about it. And nothing like this had ever been done. So we had the historical significance of this being appreciated by people all over the country, including the Chicago Tribune to some extent, and the Sun-Times to some extent. But you know, they weren't as they weren't as in depth about it as the Washington Post and some of the other national papers. But what was really disappointing is that the city of Chicago, after having passed this ordinance with a vote of 36 for and I think 13 against, after having passed this ordinance, did little or nothing to inform the people of this city about this historical accomplishment.
Right.
Because it wasn't an accomplishment of the city of Chicago, number one. It was an accomplishment of the black and brown people in this city.
Right.
And so that's why they weren't too keen on it.
Right.
See, I used to say all the time that they give us reforms with a teaspoon and they take it back with a shovel. So now,
that's a good analogy.
This was the first time that our movement came with a shovel. You know, so now they got the teaspoon.
And they're not ready for that. They're not ready.
They don't like having the teaspoon.
Absolutely not.
So they're not. It's not very popular with them.
Right. Right.
The mayor, if I may just say so, the mayor has blocked us every step of the way.
Right.
She signed off on it. Did a press conference on the day that it was signed off on July the 21st, praising it up and down, and then folded. You know, everything that was supposed to happen on schedule did not happen.
Yeah.
You know, we were supposed to have an interim commission set up by December. We didn't get the interim commission until August the 31st of this year.
Yeah.
It's supposed to have been December of last year.
Yeah.
No. I'm
Not
wrong
December.
because we're in 2023.
2023, yeah.
Yeah, so it was supposed to be set up in 2021, in December 2021. It didn't get set up until August the 31st in 2022.
But that's kind of the beast of the city, though, because, you know, I also do work around the Chicago consent decree, and we've had a lot of the same issues. You know, they're failing horribly at the consent decree, and then what they do is they'll backpedal, they'll make excuses, because, you know, what I'm saying is that the city of Chicago, nor the police department, is ready to share power with community members. Right.
No, this is no matter where you're at in the political spectrum, this is clearly a democratic advance because the people have not had any say, any voice in how their communities are policed. And to just have the option on the table is a step forward. It's never even been on the table before. So that's a step forward. And we're not expecting any help from the police department and the powers that be in this city, because this means allowing us to have a movement for self-empowerment at the grassroots level.
Right.
Can I give an example?
Please do.
Look at the candidates. Look at the candidates that are running for these district council positions. You know, you got 22 police districts in the city of Chicago. In each police district, we have the democratic option to elect 3 representatives to represent the people who live in that district. Our organization is working with over 50 candidates. Our organization is working with over 50 candidates. Most of those candidates are black and brown, working class and poor. Let me say it again.
Say it again.
Black and brown.
I'm one of them.
Working class and poor. Okay.
Oh.
Poor. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Poor. Okay. Now check this out. This is the only election that I've ever experienced in my life, and I've worked in many of them over the years, where the candidates don't have a campaign office, haven't raised any campaign funds.
Barely.
You know, and a little while ago, most of them didn't even have websites. We've had to train these candidates on how to run
everything.
We had to train them on how to get on the ballot,
how to canvass,
how to canvass, how to do everything.
Yeah.
But they've been hanging in there with us.
Yeah.
And so this is truly a grassroots movement, and the political experience that these people are getting, that our people are getting at this level, is invaluable.
Yeah, and it's different because so I am running for 15th district, and it's been something. Just thinking about the political landscape here in the city. That was that created a lot of trepidations for people, you know, because most of us are not. You know, you have some who run for different offices, but most of us, like you said, are just community members that are just passionate about, you know, our communities. Most of us, a lot of us have been impacted, or we see the impacts, things that happen in our communities that don't happen in other communities, especially around our young people and our people living with disabilities, how they're mistreated. And so, you know, this is who is stepping up. But, you know, it's just a lot to have to go through these political processes. But it's a learning experience at the same time. But I don't think Chicago politics or the way our politics operate here has been new to anyone. It's just that now that we are on the other side of it, you know, getting a whole different vantage point of it. So, but let's talk to that a little bit about, you know, what do you see some of the future challenges may be, because it is a political, it's very political, even though everything is already political, but now it is truly being politicized. So what do you think some of our challenges may be as we get into these district council seats?
Well, I think our number one challenge right now is getting elected. But after we get elected, I think the number one challenge is going to be having, I think the immediate challenges, I'm not going to prioritize them at this moment. The immediate challenges is going to be the district councils coming together in their various districts, holding public meetings and hearings and assessing from the people, what do you see as the safety needs of this community? Getting that direct input from the people who live in the districts. And then that enables the district councils to be the eyes and the ears of the citywide commission. Feed that information to the commission, insist that the commission address these needs, And we have a built-in petition process if the commission does not fulfill these needs. We can petition them to do so. So the agenda for the citywide commission is going to be set in the district councils.
Okay.
What they're going to address. If we think there should be some changes in policies with regard to the unwarranted use of deadly force, we put that in the commission. If we think there should be some changes in policy with the no-knock procedures and whatnot, we put that in. Whatever we think should be addressed. Right now, we got the commission dealing with the gang database, to stop that from recycling.
And the shot spotter. I think they were talking about the shot spotter too.
And the shot spotter, yes.
Yeah.
So every aspect of police policy, we can address every aspect. And the beginning of this process starts in the district council. It starts there. It starts with the people who live in that police district. And so the representatives of those districts is going to have to be aggressive and energetic in terms of engaging the people of their district so they will know what their needs are.
Yeah.
Our advice to the representatives in the districts is that this is not for you to represent what you want.
Right.
This is for you to represent what the people
Community
want.
wants. Absolutely.
And so we're going to hold you to that as a movement.
Absolutely.
You know.
That's what I asked. Someone asked a question yesterday on one of the forums about, kind of in addition to some of our roles and how we would, kind of hold each other up in this work. And it's definitely, we're going to have to operate in integrity. Going to have some backbone, because I think we talked briefly about now we will be, some of the districts are, community, but we do have districts here that are, inundated with police officers, right?
Sure.
So
A few.
right. So then they're also going to be at the table along with us. And some of the concerns for some has been, the Fraternal Order of Police, and we do know that they're a minority. But if we're not like really conscious of how we work together, that minority could end up being a majority in a space. You know what I mean? So the Fraternal Order of Police, a lot of people can be intimidated. And so what would you suggest to folks who may be in a district that is made up of, police officers or who may become what is the word I'm looking for? Problematic in this process and really become a thorn in our side. How would you, kind of encourage the district, those community members to kind of, hold the line, so to speak, to get the work done?
Well, I think we need to be united around what our community wants. Most of these FOP candidates, most of them, are going to win and have the upper hand in those districts, like the 8th district, for example, where a lot of police are residents. Democracy can be messy like this. They have a democratic right to run. Like a lot of times people ask me during the process of petitioning and even doing now, but particularly during the process of petitioning, should we get them knocked off the ballot? And my response was, don't waste your time, your energy, and your money. Beat them at the ballot box. Beat them at the ballot box. And they tried to suck us into some fights where we would put time, energy, and money, because, election lawyers are very expensive, into, fighting to get them off the ballot. They fought to get us off the ballot. And most of our people were able to beat them back. Okay. Now it's about who's on the ballot, and then to what you're speaking to, after the elections, it's going to be about who's in those seats. And so once we get in those seats, then we ought to be very, very clear that the black and brown communities of this city are going to have to be the drivers. They're going to have to be the drivers of all reforms and all oversight happening in the city going forward. We're not saying that former police officers or candidates of the FOP are stuck to their position. They don't have to be. They could change over to ours, you know. But what we are saying is that this ordinance was not passed for you. If you're here representing the FOP, this ordinance was not passed. This ordinance was passed to hold police accountable. I'm not going to beat on the table anymore. This ordinance was passed to hold police accountable.
Accountable.
Not for police to get in there and upset and destroy the integrity of the law.
Yeah.
That's
the first thing I have to lift up to people constantly, even people who are running, is that remember that this is about accountability, because a lot of conversations start to come up about restorative justice and those kind of parts, and that's wonderful. But before we could get to any of those things, we really have to look at how to hold them accountable. When we have community members, say for instance in Austin, community members are constantly complaining about making calls and either getting extremely late responses, and they say for a lot of our domestic violence calls, they get little to no responses. So these are things that, or either there are things happening, and this is something we worked around the consent decrees about gun pointing, officers having tendencies to, have guns drawn when, it's not a time that they should be. So so these are things that our communities are concerned about. They're not really just yet thinking about building trust or restorative justice circles. They really want to address, our rights being violated, as residents. Those are the first and primary things that I would think. And so again, when you say accountability, what is something really that the district council members should be looking at? Because I think a lot of them are coming into ready to have our kumbaya moments and what have you, when they're first of all, police department never admits harm. It never admits harm. It never even has a measure to deal with the harm that has been happening in our communities. So yeah, I just want people to be clear about this work that we're getting into, that accountability is at the forefront of it, correct?
Absolutely. Look and listen and learn. Look at what the police do and what they don't do. What they do and what they don't do. You talked about some of the things that they don't do. I think to make this really work, the people who get elected should be looking at holding police accountable for the crimes that they commit. Because what you have had in the black community and the Latino community as well, you've had a system of police tyranny where the police are not held accountable. Not held accountable. If you murder people and you don't get held accountable, if you brutalize people and you don't get held accountable, you're not being held accountable for your crimes. Those are crimes. Murder is a crime. You should be tried and convicted in jail for murder.
Yeah.
So if you don't have accountability, then you don't have nothing else. If you don't have accountability, what do you mean? What are you talking about? Trust. That doesn't even enter into the picture.
Yeah.
If you don't have accountability.
Yeah.
What are you talking about working together? You can't work together with somebody that disrespects you and disrespects your life. So no. What we as a community have to do is make sure that we have a democratic voice in saying who polices our communities and how our communities police. We have to have that voice, and we have to exercise that voice. And the only way to exercise that voice fundamentally is to hold the police accountable for what they do and for what they don't do. For what they do and for what they don't do. Hold them accountable.
Hold them accountable, right. So I definitely want to touch on, though, some of the district council, the roles and responsibilities of the district council, and you have it there. I want to be specific and read the roles, what is to be expected.
Okay.
The powers.
The district council powers. I spoke to some of this already. Nominate members of the Community Commission on Public Safety and Accountability, which will consist of 7 people. Hold monthly public meetings to gather community input about policing in their district. Hold monthly public meetings.
No, okay.
Now, should I continue?
Yep.
Work to develop and expand restorative justice programs and community policing initiatives in their district. In other words, assess your district for the policies that they think need to be implemented. Meet with district commander to provide input and community oversight and have a say about new CPD initiatives. It doesn't say, it doesn't say meet with your commander and say to him, Commander, what do you want us to do?
Right.
How can we help you?
Right.
No. When you meet with your commander and say, here's what we want done.
Right.
Here's what we want done.
Right.
That thing about serve that you got written on your car. Okay. We want to make that real. You're here to serve us.
That's right. That's right.
Attend quarterly meetings of district councils across Chicago. So all 22 district councils across Chicago will have a meeting 4 times a year. That's every 3 months. Report its findings to the Community Commission on Public Safety and Accountability. So those are important powers, and it enables us to get this thing started. And I'd just like to speak a little bit more on the role.
Okay.
Each district council member will be expected to fulfill one of 3 specific roles as a DC member while working together to achieve the broader goals listed above. Community engagement is focused on the community meetings and gathering community input. Chair role is the point person for coordinating meetings and making sure tasks are being implemented or completed. Nominating role helps choose the commission, is the point person to connect to the whole district council body and the commission. So it's broke down like that. Nothing is perfect. It's not going to work maybe even as good as a clock, But the thing of it is that it gives us a set of policies that we can start implementing and practices that we can start doing and engaging the people in.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. But it is still a political process. Just hoping I'll be, have my seat at the table. But I'm like Shirley Chisholm. If they don't give me a seat, I'm gonna bring a folding chair. That's why I keep trying to get them to understand. I'm gonna be in this work regardless, regardless of this. And I believe that you touched on, the honorable, Chairman Fred. And one thing that, I told someone, I say, well, he has taught me that you do not need to hold a political position to be in leadership, but someone says, well, he wasn't, a political leader, he was a political servant. He served the people, and I had to, kind of wrap myself around that and be like, yes, definitely looking at it that way, as a servant and not as a political official or political leader, but as a servant. And when I think we keep that aspect in mind, that, we are really going to be serving, our communities, listening to our communities, and truly what they have to say. And they asked me, who was that be? And I told them, for me, it's everybody in the community, even the young people, the shooters, the whomever. Everybody has a right to this, and everybody can come and address and speak, because they have things to say too. When we talk about, community, there's a lot of things happening in our communities, and the police are missing in a lot of them, because one of the things I lifted up was about, I work with a lot of families who've lost loved ones, and they can't find the police. They don't know where their cases are. This is important. They are missing in action, but here we are about to give them $2 billion to serve and protect our communities, but they're not really serving or protecting our communities. We are all still living in a certain level of fear, especially as Black mothers. We have fear for our sons and our loved ones, and it's like we want to have that sense of safety and security, but it's not there. It's not present, and it's hard. It's hard for especially African American mothers today, worrying about the people who look like us, and then worrying about the people in blue. So it's a lot happening now. But before we wrap up, I definitely want to thank you for being my first guest. I thought this was kind of paramount to have this conversation, as we're getting ready to do it big here in Chicago. And I'm proud of Chicago about the work that we've been doing. It's been a lot of movement work, and I'm so grateful to be a part of it, and know so many activists and organizers out here. I know a lot of people are saying they're on the front line of the work, but not everybody that's saying they are. But I know you are. I know the Alliance is. I know CPAC has been. And so, yeah, it's just grateful to know you and be in your company. And I feel like I've been really primed and molded for this work, and I'm just gonna get in there and do the best I possibly can. But before we wrap up, I just want you to share something, like, just from your heart, like, just share something for the people that you think that they should know, in this current climate.
Well, from my heart, I know that we will win, and I've been involved in the struggle since I was 19 years old, and I'm now 80 and some change. And I know that it's difficult sometimes, but I have never lost my faith in the people. I have never lost a sense of the reality that was brought home to me many, many times in this movement, and that is that the people united can never be defeated. Can never be defeated. Not sometimes, never. But the key thing is maintaining that unity. Maintaining it, because when we are defeated, it's when that unity is broken. So let's do this going into these elections. We have told, and we've done this, we've told all the candidates that we're supporting, don't fight one another. Let the people decide whether or not you're going to represent them. Don't try to manipulate the ballot. Don't try to manipulate people out of this race. Take your message to the people and let the people decide who's going to win. We don't need internal fighting. What we need is unity. And the unity that we need is that every last one of you who are running for district council, if police accountability is your aim and your goal, then you want to unite with everybody else that's doing the same. If you don't win, support them when they do. We got to be united on this. That's the only way it's going to work.
Thank you, Baba Frank Chapman, for being here with me today on Shadow Families with Glamorous Militant. So once again, thank you all for being here, and looking forward to, seeing you all next go round. Thank you all for joining us today for our first show of Shadow Families featuring your host, the Glamorous Militant, aka Arewa. Please stay tuned. I'm going to be bringing you so many more activists, organizers, civil rights attorneys, and we're going to be taking deep dives into these conversations, especially around what's happening here in Chicago with our police department, because we are leading the pack. And look forward to seeing you next time.